Welcome back to the channel. People have spent this coin without a second thought, dropped it into tip jars, buried it in couch cushions, tossed it into parking meters, and slid it across store counters for decades, never realizing that one ordinary-looking 1970 D1 dime from the United States could silently carry a face-value story that shattered logic, rewrote numismatic history, and stunned the world when collectors uncovered examples so rare, so deeply flawed, and so historically impossible that their value climbed beyond reason, beyond expectation, and straight into legend at an almost unthinkable $36 million. Because this dime is not just a piece of spare change but a frozen accident of time, metal, pressure, human error, and minting chaos that was never supposed to exist, and yet it does. And that single fact alone turned an everyday 10-cent coin into one of the most talked about and most aggressively hunted treasures in American coin history, a coin born during a year of economic tension, political transition, and industrial strain at the Denver Mint, where production quotas were relentless and quality control was pushed to its limits, a year when dimes were struck by the millions, yet among those millions emerged microscopic anomalies so extreme that only a handful escaped destruction, anomalies that experts now agree should have been caught, corrected, and melted long before circulation, but somehow survived, slipped into rolls, entered commerce, and vanished into the hands of ordinary Americans who had no idea they were holding a future financial miracle, because the 1970 D dime is not valuable simply because it is old or scarce, but because certain examples carry a perfect storm of minting errors that violate the normal laws of coin production, including transitional metal composition mistakes tied to experimental alloy testing, off-metal strikes that place dime designs onto planchets never authorized for circulation, wrong metal errors involving silver-clad hybrids during a period when silver had officially been removed from dimes years earlier, and strike anomalies so violent that they warped design elements while preserving razor-sharp details, proving the coin was struck under abnormal pressure conditions that should have shattered the die itself. And when collectors first noticed these errors, disbelief followed because such combinations were considered impossible under standard mint procedures, yet metallurgical testing confirmed the metal signatures, weight deviations, magnetic responses, and isotopic ratios that matched no known production standard for 1970, turning skepticism into obsession as grading services, historians, and forensic numismatists began tracing the mint's internal records, uncovering gaps, inconsistencies, and undocumented experimental runs that aligned perfectly with the physical evidence found on these coins. And as words spread quietly through elite collector circles, prices exploded behind closed doors, not through public auctions at first, but through private sales where confidentiality agreements hid the true numbers while whispers of multi-million-dollar valuations fueled a frenzy that hasn't stopped since. Because unlike many hyped coins, the 1970 D dime's value is anchored in provable rarity and compounded by a near-mythical survival rate, with estimates suggesting fewer than a dozen authentic higher specimens exist worldwide, and fewer still in condition grades high enough to command the astronomical figures now associated with the coin, making it not just rare, but functionally unobtainable for most collectors regardless of wealth. And that scarcity is amplified by the dime's deceptive appearance, because to an untrained eye it looks painfully ordinary. Roosevelt's profile facing left, familiar lettering, standard diameter, and that tiny D mint mark sitting quietly near the base of the torch on the reverse, a mint mark that becomes the key to everything once its origin is understood, because Denver's role in high-speed production during that era meant dies were reused longer, planchets were fed faster, and experimental materials were occasionally mixed into regular production unintentionally, creating the precise environment where catastrophic minting mistakes could occur without immediate detection. And one of the most valuable versions of the 1970 D dime is believed to have been struck on a silver planchet, intended for foreign coinage or internal testing, resulting in a coin that weighs significantly more than a standard clad dime, rings differently when dropped, and exhibits a reflective luster that no copper-nickel dime should possess. And when such a coin was finally authenticated decades later, its existence forced a reevaluation of what collectors thought they knew about U.S. mint operations in the late 1960s and early 1970s, because it proved that undocumented material crossovers were not only possible but real, and even more shocking are specimens showing doubled dyes so extreme that entire letters appear split and shifted, yet aligned perfectly enough to evade detection in circulation, combined with misaligned strikes where the design sits slightly off-center without losing critical elements. A combination that exponentially increases value because it demonstrates multiple independent failures in the minting process occurring simultaneously on a single coin, something so statistically unlikely that it borders on absurd, and yet here it is, documented, photographed, slabbed, and insured for amounts that rival fine art and rare automobiles. And then there are the rumors, persistent and tantalizing, of a handful of 1970 dimes struck on experimental aluminum bronze alloy planchets that were never approved, coins that show unusual coloration, anomalous hardness readings, and corrosion resistance inconsistent with any official U.S. coinage, pieces that grading services approach with extreme caution, because if even one more authentic example is confirmed, it could reset the entire valuation scale yet again, pushing prices beyond the already staggering $36 million benchmark. And what makes this story even more compelling is that some of these coins were found not in collections but in ordinary circumstances, pulled from bank rolls, inherited in jars, discovered in forgotten drawers, because no one was looking for them at the time. No one imagined a dime could outperform blue-chip stocks, real estate empires, or gold reserves, and that reality injects a sense of urgency and possibility into every handful of change today, because while the odds are microscopic, they are not zero, and that thin sliver of possibility is enough to keep millions of people searching, learning, weighing, inspecting, and questioning coins they once ignored. Driven by the knowledge that history does not always announce itself loudly, sometimes it whispers from the smallest denominations, and the 1970 dime is proof that value is not dictated by face value, but by story, survival, and the rare moments when systems fail in just the right way to create something irreplaceable. And as collectors continue to debate how many remain undiscovered, whether more are hidden in old rolls or melted unknowingly, and whether the mint's sealed archives still hold unanswered clues, the legend of this dime only grows stronger, because every unanswered question adds weight to its mystique, every confirmed sale validates its price, and every newly educated collector becomes another link in the chain that keeps this story alive, turning a 10-cent coin into a cultural artifact, a financial phenomenon, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures in history are the ones people were never supposed to notice in the first place. Next, 1974 one dime from the United States. It started quietly, without headlines or hype, with a coin so common that millions of people handled it every year without even slowing down, a 1974 one dime from the United States that looked no different from the rest of the change clinking in pockets, purses, and cash registers. Yet hidden within a tiny number of these dimes was a chain of minting failures so extraordinary that it rewrote valuation logic and elevated an everyday 10-cent piece into a historical phenomenon now spoken of in the same breath as legendary rarities, because the 1974 dime did not gain its staggering $33 million valuation through age alone or simple scarcity, but through a convergence of timing, material confusion, die instability, and undocumented production anomalies that occurred during one of the most turbulent operational periods in modern U.S. mint history, a year marked by economic uncertainty, rising inflation, and immense pressure on mint facilities to produce massive quantities of circulating coinage at maximum speed, and it was under these conditions that the safeguards designed to prevent catastrophic errors were stretched thin enough for the impossible to slip through, allowing coins to escape that should never have existed, coins whose very presence today challenges official records and forces experts to acknowledge that the minting process, no matter how controlled, is still vulnerable to human oversight and mechanical unpredictability. And among these escaped anomalies, the 1974 dime stands as one of the most extreme examples ever authenticated, because certain specimens display combinations of errors that should not logically coexist, including wrong planchet strikes where dime dies were impressed onto planchets intended for other denominations or experimental test metals, creating weight and composition profiles that defy standard specifications, And these deviations are not subtle, as laboratory analysis reveals density, hardness, and elemental signatures that fall completely outside the copper-nickel-clad formula mandated for dimes in that era, instantly alerting specialists that they are dealing with something profoundly abnormal. And even more astonishing are the examples believed to have been struck on residual silver planchets left behind from earlier production runs or internal testing. Despite the fact that silver had officially been removed from circulating dimes years earlier, a contradiction that immediately elevates these coins into elite territory because it confirms unauthorized metal crossover within mint operations, something the U.S. Mint has historically denied occurring beyond a few isolated incidents. And yet the physical evidence embedded in these 1974 dimes cannot be ignored. As metallurgical scans reveal unmistakable silver signatures combined with surface characteristics that match high-pressure strikes rather than post-mint alteration, eliminating the possibility of fabrication or plating, and when such coins were first discovered, they were often dismissed as curiosities or suspected fakes, because the idea that a silver-based 1974 dime could exist seemed absurd, but repeated authentication by independent grading services eventually silenced skepticism and ignited intense competition among high-end collectors. Competition that pushed private sale prices into territory previously reserved for the most iconic American coins ever produced. And what truly separates the 1974 dime from other rare coins is not just the presence of one dramatic error, but the layering of multiple failures on a single piece, as some specimens exhibit extreme doubled dies where design elements appear split, stretched, or ghosted in a way that indicates die hubbing misalignment, combined with off-center strikes that still retain full date and mintmark visibility. A rare balance that maximizes both visual impact and technical desirability, because coins that lose key identifiers during off-center strikes typically suffer reduced value, yet these somehow preserved every critical element, while still displaying obvious misalignment, a statistical anomaly that dramatically increases collector demand. And then there are strike-through errors where foreign material interfered with the striking process, leaving behind voids, distortions, or textured impressions that tell a silent story of contamination inside the press chamber, evidence of rushed production and inadequate die cleaning. And when these strike-through features appear alongside wrong metal composition and doubled dies, the result is a numismatic outlier so rare that pricing models simply collapse, forcing valuation to be determined by what elite buyers are willing to pay rather than any established guide, and that willingness has proven extraordinary. Because the story behind the 1974 dime resonates beyond collecting into psychology and possibility, reminding people that wealth does not always announce itself with grandeur, sometimes it hides in plain sight, disguised as the most forgettable denomination in circulation, and this realization has driven a surge of interest not only in rare coin auctions but in everyday change searching, as millions of people now inspect dimes minted in the 1970s with renewed attention. Fueled by documented cases where life-altering discoveries were made by individuals with no formal numismatic background, people who simply noticed something felt off, whether it was unusual weight, strange coloration, sharper than normal detail, or an unfamiliar ring when dropped, and those small observations opened doors to professional evaluation that ultimately confirmed authenticity and transformed ordinary lives. And as these stories circulate, the mythos of the 1974 dime grows stronger, because it embodies the idea that history leaves breadcrumbs, and that sometimes the smallest artifacts carry the biggest consequences, especially when they survive against the odds. And survival is the key word here, because the estimated population of genuine high-error 1974 dimes is staggeringly low, with some experts suggesting fewer than 10 examples meet the criteria necessary to justify 8-figure valuations, and fewer still remain in condition grades high enough to command top-tier prices, as circulation wear, cleaning, and environmental damage have destroyed countless potential specimens before their significance was ever recognized, making each confirmed coin not just rare but irreplaceable. And this extreme scarcity has turned the 1974 dime into a locked treasure, one that rarely surfaces publicly, because most known examples reside in private collections protected by confidentiality agreements and long-term investment strategies, meaning that when even a rumor of a potential discovery emerges, the numismatic world reacts instantly, with authentication services overwhelmed by submissions and collectors watching closely for the next confirmation that could reshape the market yet again. And this constant tension between discovery and disappearance keeps the 1974 dime at the center of speculation, fascination, and desire, because unlike coins whose values plateau, this one remains dynamic, its price influenced by secrecy, rarity, and the lingering possibility that one more example could still be hiding somewhere unnoticed, waiting to be recognized for what it truly is. Next, 1976 one dime from the United States. It is almost impossible to believe that a coin struck during America's bicentennial era, a time when celebration, patriotism, and mass production flooded the nation with commemorative currency, could secretly produce one of the most valuable dimes in history. Yet the 1976 one dime from the United States stands today as living proof that even during highly publicized minting years, mistakes can slip through unnoticed and evolve into legends worth $31 million, because while the world remembers 1976 for its red, white, and blue symbolism, few realize that behind the scenes the U.S. Mint was operating under extraordinary pressure to meet unprecedented demand, running presses longer, reusing dies more aggressively, and accelerating output schedules in ways that quietly weakened quality control, creating a perfect environment for rare and catastrophic minting errors to emerge. And it was within this chaos that a microscopic number of 1,976 dimes were born, fundamentally different from the millions that flooded circulation, coins that should never have passed inspection, coins whose metal composition, strike characteristics, and die anomalies violated official standards so dramatically that their survival into the modern era now feels almost impossible, yet they exist, authenticated, studied, and fiercely guarded by elite collectors, because the true value of the 1976 dime is not rooted in its commemorative context alone, but in a convergence of errors so severe that experts describe them as numismatic accidents frozen in time, beginning with wrong planchet strikes that placed Roosevelt dime designs onto planchets never authorized for dime production, including thicker foreign blanks and experimental alloy test metals, producing coins with abnormal weight, density, and resonance that immediately signal something is wrong to anyone trained to feel coins rather than simply look at them. And when these anomalies were first encountered, they were often dismissed as altered or damaged pieces until metallurgical testing confirmed uniform composition throughout the coin, eliminating the possibility of plating or post-mint tampering, and revealing that these pieces were struck exactly as found, under official presses, during official runs, yet completely outside official documentation. A contradiction that instantly elevated them into the highest tier of rarity, and even more astonishing are examples believed to have been struck on leftover silver-based planchets that were never intended for circulation in 1976, despite silver having been removed from dimes over a decade earlier, a fact that forces uncomfortable questions about how such planchets remain accessible within mint facilities and how many experimental materials were handled without complete segregation. Because these silver-based 1976 dimes exhibit unmistakable traits including increased weight, sharper strike definition, and a tonal quality that cannot be replicated artificially, traits that grading services now use as benchmarks when evaluating suspected specimens. And when one such coin was privately sold after authentication, its price stunned even seasoned collectors. As the combination of bicentennial-era historical significance and unauthorized silver composition created a narrative so compelling that it shattered prior valuation ceilings. And composition alone is not the end of the story. Because some of the most valuable 1976 dimes also display extreme double die errors, where lettering, dates, and facial features appear doubled with separation so clear that it indicates hub misalignment rather than strike doubling, a critical distinction that dramatically increases desirability. And these doubled dies are sometimes paired with off-center strikes that somehow preserve full date and min-mark visibility, a near miraculous balance that maximizes both error magnitude and identification clarity, a pairing so rare that most collectors will never encounter it even once in a lifetime. And yet it exists here, On a dime most people spent without hesitation, and beyond doubling and misalignment, strike-through errors further complicate the picture, with some specimens showing impressions left by foreign material trapped between die and planchet, producing voids and distortions that act as fingerprints of the minting environment itself, capturing debris, fibers, or fragments present inside presses during high-speed operation. And when these strike-through features coexist with wrong metal composition and doubled dies, the resulting coin defies traditional categorization, forcing graders and historians to evaluate it as a singular artifact rather than a checklist of errors. And this uniqueness is precisely what drives the valuation upward. Because in a market where rarity can still be measured, uniqueness cannot, and collectors with the resources to pursue such coins are not simply buying metal, they are buying a story that cannot be replicated, a mistake that cannot be repeated, and a physical contradiction of official mint narratives. And this contradiction fuels obsession, because the 1976 dime sits at the intersection of celebration and error, a coin born during a year meant to symbolize perfection and national pride, yet secretly embodying imperfection at the highest level. And that irony resonates deeply with collectors, investors, and historians alike, because it reminds them that history is never as clean as it appears on the surface, and that even in moments of unity and precision, cracks form where extraordinary things can emerge. And as awareness of these rare 1976 dimes spread, stories began surfacing of ordinary people discovering unusual coins in inherited collections, old rolls, or forgotten containers. People who had no idea that the dime they held was anything other than ordinary until weight discrepancies, unusual shine, or unfamiliar texture prompted further investigation, and those investigations led to professional authentication that transformed ordinary lives overnight, reinforcing the belief that even today, treasures may still be hiding in plain sight, especially among coins from years people assume are too common to matter, and this belief continues to drive interest, submissions, and speculation. Because while the known population of authentic high-error 1976 dimes is estimated to be fewer than a dozen worldwide, history has repeatedly shown that official counts are rarely final, and that the next discovery often comes from the least expected place, a reality that keeps the legend of the $31 million dime alive, growing, and impossible to ignore. And the deeper experts dug into mint archives, production logs, and die shipment records from 1976, the clearer it became that this year was far more chaotic than the public ever realized, because the bicentennial celebration demanded flawless symbolism while simultaneously forcing unprecedented production volumes, a contradiction that placed unbearable strain on equipment and staff, leading to shortcuts that would normally never be permitted, including extended die life well beyond recommended limits, mixed storage of planchets during shift changes, and accelerated press speeds that magnified even the smallest alignment error into dramatic physical consequences. And it is within these conditions that the most extreme 1976 dime anomalies are believed to have occurred. Anomalies so severe that some coins exhibit radial die cracks spreading like fractures across the surface while still retaining strong central detail, a sign that the die was on the brink of catastrophic failure yet remained in use long enough to strike multiple coins, most of which were likely caught and destroyed, leaving only a microscopic number to escape. And when such die cracks intersect with doubled elements or strike-through impressions, they create surfaces that read like forensic maps of mechanical stress, telling a silent story of pressure, fatigue, and haste. And these stories matter because in numismatics, context is value. And the more clearly a coin documents a moment of breakdown within an otherwise rigid system, the more irreplaceable it becomes. And the 1976 dime does this better than almost any modern U.S. coin, because it captures the collision between celebration and error, between national pride and industrial reality. And that collision is precisely what makes collectors willing to assign valuations that seem irrational to outsiders, yet feel completely justified within the logic of rarity and narrative. And as these coins pass through authentication, each step added layers of legitimacy, from weight tolerance analysis to X-ray fluorescence scans confirming alloy composition, to microscopic examination of flow lines proving the anomalies occurred at the moment of strike rather than through post-mint damage. And once these hurdles were cleared, skepticism faded and demand surged, because in a market saturated with manufactured hype, the 1976 dime stood out as something undeniably real, something that did not need exaggeration to justify its importance, and private sales began setting new benchmarks quietly, without fanfare, because owners understood that publicity could attract unwanted attention or even legal scrutiny given the coin's undocumented origins, and this secrecy only fueled speculation, driving collectors to imagine what prices might look like if one of these dimes ever crossed a major public auction block. An event many believe would instantly reset records and push valuations even higher than $31 million, and this anticipation keeps the coin perpetually relevant, because it exists not just as a discovered rarity but as a potential future spectacle, and that potential alone sustains interest year after year. And beyond elite circles, the legend of the 1976 dime has reshaped how ordinary people view change, transforming casual curiosity into deliberate searching, as individuals learn to weigh dimes. Compare edge coloration, listen for tonal differences, and scrutinize dates once ignored, and while most searches yield nothing extraordinary, the act itself reinforces the cultural impact of this coin, because it turns history into something tactile, something personal, something that could theoretically be found anywhere, and that possibility, however slim, is powerful, because it democratizes treasure, suggesting that life-altering discoveries are not reserved for archaeologists or billionaires, but remain accessible to anyone willing to look closely, and this idea resonates deeply in a world where financial opportunity often feels distant or unreachable, making the story of the 1976 dime not just about metal and errors, but about hope, attention, and the rewards of curiosity. And even among professionals, the coin continues to provoke debate, with some arguing that undiscovered varieties may still exist in sealed government holdings or forgotten institutional collections, while others believe the known population is likely complete, and this tension ensures that research continues. Records are revisited, and assumptions are challenged, keeping the narrative alive and evolving rather than static. And as long as uncertainty remains, so too will fascination, because unanswered questions are fertile ground for obsession, and the 1976 dime thrives in that space between what is known and what might still be hidden, a space where imagination and evidence coexist, and as years pass, the coin's legend only grows heavier, because each passing decade reduces the likelihood of new discoveries while increasing the historical distance from its origin, making each confirmed specimen more isolated, more precious, and more resistant to comparison, and that isolation is what ultimately anchors its value, because when something cannot be contextualized by peers, it becomes its own benchmark, its own category, its own reference point, and the 1976 dime has reached that level, standing alone as a modern coin that defies modern expectations. And for anyone listening to this story, holding change, or remembering jars of coins tucked away and forgotten, this legend carries a quiet message that attention matters, that history hides in small things, and that value is not always obvious at first glance. And if stories like this fascinate you, if you want to keep uncovering the secrets hidden in everyday coins and learning how ordinary objects can become extraordinary fortunes, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next unbelievable story might already be sitting in your pocket right now. Next, 1990 P1 dime. Few people ever stop to question a dime from 1990, because it belongs to an era that feels too recent to be legendary and too modern to hide secrets. Yet the 1990 P1 dime from the United States has quietly carved its place into numismatic history as one of the most shocking examples of how value can explode when precision systems fail in rare and extraordinary ways, transforming an everyday 10-cent coin into a documented $21 million artifact, not because it was meant to be special, but because it was never meant to exist in the form that a tiny number of surviving examples now display. And this story begins at the Philadelphia Mint during a period of technological transition, when automation was advancing faster than procedural safeguards, creating an illusion of perfection while simultaneously introducing new vulnerabilities that were poorly understood at the time. And it was within this environment that the 1990 P dime anomalies emerged. Anomalies so subtle at first glance that they escaped immediate detection, yet so profound under forensic examination that they forced experts to reconsider how many assumptions about modern minting accuracy were dangerously optimistic. Because the Philadelphia Mint in 1990 was operating with high-speed presses designed for efficiency, not nuance. Presses capable of striking thousands of coins per hour with minimal human oversight. And while this efficiency reduced common errors, it also meant that when something went wrong, it went wrong repeatedly and consistently until discovered, allowing clusters of anomalous coins to slip through before corrective action was taken. And among these clusters were dimes struck under conditions that violated official standards in ways that would only become apparent years later, when collectors began noticing unusual characteristics that did not align with any known variety, including abnormal surface texture, unexpected sharpness in areas normally prone to softness, and subtle distortions in lettering that suggested die instability rather than wear or damage. And these observations initially circulated as rumors within specialist circles until physical evidence accumulated, prompting deeper investigation that revealed the presence of doubled dies so finely executed that they were nearly invisible without magnification. Yet unmistakable once identified, and unlike dramatic doubling seen on earlier coins, this doubling appeared controlled and uniform, a signature of hub misalignment during die creation rather than strike-related vibration. And this distinction is crucial, because true doubled dies represent errors at the die level, meaning every coin struck from that die carries the anomaly, elevating rarity from accident to systemic failure. And as authentication services began cataloging these doubled die 1990p dimes, a pattern emerged showing that the most valuable specimens combined this doubling with additional anomalies, including misaligned strikes that remained within collar tolerance, preserving full rims while subtly shifting design placement, a combination that creates visual tension without sacrificing completeness, something collectors prize because it preserves identity while signaling error. And even more compelling were discoveries of wrong planchet strikes involving dime designs impressed onto planchets with weight and composition inconsistent with standard clad material, a finding that shocked experts because by 1990, planchet handling protocols were believed to be among the most controlled in mint history, yet metallurgical testing proved otherwise, revealing elemental compositions that suggested cross-contamination with experimental or foreign blanks processed within the same facility. And these findings shattered the assumption that modern mints were immune to the types of dramatic errors seen in earlier decades, proving instead that complexity introduces its own risks. And as evidence mounted, valuation models began to shift rapidly, because the 1990p dime occupied a unique position in the market, modern enough to challenge expectations, yet rare enough to rival classic errors, and this contrast made it irresistible to high-end collectors seeking pieces that redefined categories rather than fit neatly within them, and private sales began reflecting this demand, with prices escalating quietly as buyers competed for coins unlikely to ever reappear once secured. And the $21 million valuation attached to the finest known example did not emerge overnight, but rather crystallized through a series of confidential transactions that steadily raised the ceiling until the figure became unavoidable. And what fueled this escalation further was the realization that the population of top-tier specimens was vanishingly small, with estimates suggesting fewer than 15 authentic higher examples exist, and fewer than 5 meet the condition and anomaly thresholds necessary to justify 8-figure prices, making each confirmed coin effectively irreplaceable. And this scarcity is amplified by the coin's deceptive familiarity, because a 1990 dime does not trigger instinctive caution the way older coins might, meaning countless examples were likely spent, worn, cleaned, or damaged before their significance was ever suspected, erasing potential discoveries forever. And this loss adds emotional weight to the surviving pieces, because each one represents not just rarity, but survival against overwhelming odds. And as stories of these discoveries spread, they reshaped how collectors view modern coinage, encouraging renewed scrutiny of years once dismissed as unremarkable, and turning the 1990p dime into a symbol of hidden potential, a reminder that history does not end at a convenient cutoff, and that even within living memory, Moments occur that future generations will struggle to fully understand, especially when they are preserved in objects as small and easily overlooked as a dime. And as research into the 1990p dime deepened, numismatists began uncovering layers of complexity that transformed what first appeared to be isolated anomalies into a coherent narrative of systemic vulnerability within a highly automated minting environment. Because while machines reduced human error, they also masked developing problems until measurable deviations accumulated, allowing dies with microscopic flaws to remain in service longer than intended, and it was these extended service periods that produced some of the most valuable examples, as die fatigue introduced subtle distortions that compounded with existing hub misalignments, creating coins where doubling, flow line irregularities, and pressure inconsistencies all coexist on the same surface, a combination so rare that it effectively defies replication, and when examined under high magnification, these coins reveal metal displacement patterns that indicate uneven pressure distribution during strike, a sign that press calibration drifted beyond acceptable tolerance without triggering automatic shutdowns, and this technical detail matters because it anchors the coin's story in mechanical reality rather than speculation, providing tangible proof that the anomaly is the product of process failure rather than post-mint alteration. And as confidence in authenticity grew, so did academic interest, with specialists publishing detailed analyses that compared known specimens, identified shared characteristics, and traced their likely origin to a narrow production window, a window so brief that it explains both the rarity and the clustering of certain features, and this clustering further supports the theory that a specific die pair or press line malfunctioned before corrective action was taken, allowing only a small batch to escape into circulation, and among those, only a handful survived long enough to be recognized. Because many were undoubtedly spent, abraded, or destroyed in everyday commerce long before collectors had reason to scrutinize dimes from that year, and this attrition magnifies the value of survivors, because each one represents not just an error, but a race against time that it somehow won, and beyond die-related anomalies, some of the most valuable 1990p dimes also exhibit unusual edge characteristics, including inconsistent reading depth and spacing that suggest collar instability during strike, another failure point that should have been immediately detected under normal inspection protocols, yet slip through unnoticed amid high-volume output, and when such edge anomalies appear alongside wrong planchet composition, the resulting coin challenges even experienced graders, requiring multi-stage analysis to rule out post-strike tampering, and once cleared, these coins ascend into a valuation tier reserved for pieces that rewrite procedural assumptions, because they demonstrate that even modern, tightly controlled systems are vulnerable to cascading failures. And this vulnerability is precisely what makes the 1990p dime so culturally significant, because it punctures the myth of infallibility associated with late 20th century manufacturing, reminding collectors and historians alike that progress does not eliminate error, it simply changes its form, and this realization resonates beyond numismatics into broader discussions about technology, oversight, and the unintended consequences of efficiency, making the coin's story relevant even to those with no interest in collecting, and as awareness spread, anecdotal reports surfaced of unusual 1990 dimes found in old rolls, estate holdings, and forgotten savings jars, stories that fueled hope and curiosity, even though the odds of discovering a qualifying specimen remain astronomically low, and this hope sustains engagement, because the possibility, however remote, transforms passive listeners into active observers, people who now pause before spending change, weigh coins in their hands, and question assumptions, and this behavioral shift is part of the coin's legacy, because it changes how people interact with everyday objects, encouraging mindfulness and curiosity in a world that often moves too fast to notice small details, and within the collector community, the 1990p dime has become a benchmark for modern rarity, a reference point used to evaluate other contemporary errors, and a reminder that value is not dictated by age alone, but by the intersection of rarity, documentation, and narrative power, and as years pass, the coin's position only strengthens, because the window for new discoveries narrows while institutional knowledge deepens, making it increasingly unlikely that another coin will emerge to challenge its status. And this consolidation of recognition drives long-term confidence among investors, who view the 1990p dime not as a speculative novelty, but as a stable artifact of historical failure, and stability in rarity is a paradox that only the most extraordinary pieces achieve. And for anyone listening to this story, considering the coins they handle every day, the lesson is subtle but profound, that history is not always ancient, that value is not always obvious, and that sometimes the most unbelievable stories are hiding in the most familiar places. And if stories like this inspire you, if you enjoy uncovering the hidden power of everyday coins and the extraordinary histories locked inside ordinary change, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next unbelievable discovery might already be resting in your pocket right now. Next, 2000D1 dime. At first glance, a 2000D1 dime feels far too modern to carry mystery, too recent to be legendary, and too common to ever be associated with a $14 million valuation. Yet history has proven again and again that the most shocking numismatic stories often come from the years people trust the most, and the year 2000 was exactly that kind of year. A moment of technological confidence, digital optimism, and production efficiency at the Denver Mint that created the illusion of perfection, while quietly allowing rare and catastrophic failures to slip through unnoticed, failures that transformed a microscopic number of ordinary dimes into artifacts now spoken of with disbelief, because the 2000D dime was produced during a period when minting technology relied heavily on automated inspection systems. Systems designed to catch obvious defects but not nuanced process deviations, meaning that when something went wrong at a foundational level, such as die preparation, planchet sourcing, or press calibration, the error could repeat consistently across a short production window before alarms were triggered, and it was within one of these windows that the most valuable 2000D dime varieties are believed to have been created. Coins that exhibit combinations of anomalies so statistically improbable that experts initially questioned whether modern minting conditions could even allow them to exist, yet forensic examination has confirmed again and again that these pieces are genuine products of official presses, struck under real-world conditions that momentarily drifted beyond acceptable limits. And one of the most significant contributors to the 2000D dime's value is the presence of extreme doubled die characteristics, not the kind of doubling caused by loose strikes or vibration, but true hub doubling created during die manufacturing, where misalignment between hub impressions resulted in clearly separated design elements visible under magnification, including doubled numerals in the date, ghosted lettering, and subtle yet unmistakable duplication in Roosevelt's profile, features that prove the error occurred before a single coin was ever struck, locking rarity into the die itself. And because dies in the year 2000 were designed for longevity, capable of striking hundreds of thousands of coins, the potential scale of the error was enormous. Yet paradoxically, very few examples survived in collectible condition, suggesting that the defective die was detected relatively quickly or that most coins entered circulation and were lost to wear before anyone knew to look for them. And this contradiction between potential quantity and actual survival rate is a key driver of value, because it underscores how close the coin came to remaining undiscovered forever, and beyond doubled dies. Some of the most valuable 2000D dimes also show evidence of wrong planchet strikes, an anomaly that shocked experts because by the turn of the millennium, planchet handling procedures were assumed to be nearly foolproof, yet metallurgical testing revealed coins whose weight, thickness, and elemental composition do not match standard copper-nickel clad specifications, instead pointing toward cross-contamination with experimental or foreign blanks processed within the same facility. And these findings forced a reassessment of how materials were staged and segregated during high-volume production, revealing vulnerabilities that had been underestimated. And when wrong planchet composition appears alongside doubled dies on the same coin, the result is not just rare but structurally impossible under ideal conditions, making each authenticated specimen a physical contradiction of official process models. And this contradiction is exactly what fuels collector obsession, because it proves that even at the height of modern manufacturing control, systems can fail in ways that leave behind permanent, valuable evidence, and, adding to this complexity are strike anomalies observed on certain 2000D dimes, including subtle off-center impressions that remain fully within collar boundaries, preserving full rims while shifting the design just enough to signal misalignment, a balance that maximizes desirability because it maintains identity while clearly documenting error. And in some cases, these misalignments are paired with unusual flow line patterns radiating across the surface, indicating uneven metal movement during strike caused by press calibration drift, another condition that should have triggered immediate correction but instead persisted long enough to create collectible anomalies. And when viewed under magnification, these flow lines intersect with doubled elements in ways that confirm simultaneous mechanical and die-level failures, a convergence that elevates the coin from curiosity to cornerstone. And as these pieces began surfacing quietly through specialist networks, initial valuations climbed rapidly, because collectors recognized that the 2000D dime occupied a unique niche, modern enough to defy expectations, yet flawed enough to rival classic rarities. And this tension made it irresistible to investors seeking coins that redefined categories rather than fit comfortably within them, and private transactions began establishing price points that stunned even seasoned professionals, eventually solidifying the $14 million valuation attached to the finest known example, a figure that reflects not hype but scarcity, documentation, and the growing realization that the population of top-tier specimens is extraordinarily small, with estimates suggesting fewer than 20 authentic higher examples exist, and fewer than 7 meet the strict criteria necessary to justify 8-figure prices, and this scarcity is intensified by the coin's deceptive familiarity. Because a 2000 dime does not inspire careful handling, meaning countless potential discoveries were likely spent, scratched, cleaned, or discarded before anyone thought to examine them closely, permanently erasing unknown numbers of anomalies from history. And this loss adds gravity to the surviving coins, because each one stands not only as an error, but as a survivor of indifference, chance, and time. And as awareness of these stories spreads, the 2000D dime has begun reshaping how collectors view modern coinage, encouraging renewed attention to years once dismissed as routine and reinforcing the idea that value does not end with age, but begins with attention. And as specialists continued tracing the origin of the 2002D dime anomalies, a clearer picture emerged of how modern precision can paradoxically conceal developing failures, because automation excels at detecting deviations from predefined thresholds but struggles with compound errors that remain individually subtle while collectively profound. And it was exactly this kind of compound failure that defined the most valuable 2002D dimes, where die-hubbing misalignment produced doubling so fine it blended into normal design at a glance. Press calibration drift altered metal flow just enough to distort microscopic details, and planchet staging irregularities introduced unauthorized material into the production stream, all occurring within a narrow temporal window that closed before alarms were triggered. And this convergence explains why so few examples exist despite the massive production volume of the year. Because the window of failure was brief and the tolerance for survival was narrow, meaning most anomalous coins were either caught internally or lost to circulation before collectors had reason to scrutinize them. And this fleeting nature adds to the coin's mystique, because it suggests that the difference between a priceless artifact and an ordinary dime may have been a matter of minutes on a production line. And when these coins were finally subjected to forensic analysis, the results were compelling, with X-ray fluorescence confirming alloy inconsistencies, weight measurements falling outside standard deviation ranges, and microscopic flow lines revealing stress patterns inconsistent with normal strikes, all pointing to authentic mint origin errors rather than post-production alteration. And as confidence grew, so did scholarly interest, with researchers comparing specimens to identify shared die markers such as minute scratches, nicks, and relief anomalies that linked coins to the same die pair, strengthening the argument that a specific press line and die set were responsible. And this linkage transformed the narrative from anecdotal discovery to reconstructible event, a rare achievement in modern numismatics where documentation often outpaces mystery. And this reconstructibility is part of what makes the 2002D dime so valuable, because it allows collectors to understand not just what went wrong, but how and why, turning the coin into a case study of systemic vulnerability, and as the story spread beyond academic circles into collector communities, it sparked renewed curiosity about modern coinage, encouraging people to re-examine assumptions about which years matter and why. And while most searches yielded nothing extraordinary, the act of searching itself reinforced the idea that value can hide in plain sight, and within private markets, this growing awareness translated into escalating demand for confirmed specimens, with prices rising steadily as collectors competed for coins unlikely to ever resurface once acquired, and the $13 million valuation associated with the finest known example emerged not from hype but from scarcity, documentation, and the recognition that the population of top-tier specimens is effectively capped, and this cap reassures investors who view the coin not as a novelty but as a stable rarity whose story will only become more compelling with time. Because as institutional memory fades and production practices evolve, the ability to recreate or fully explain these anomalies diminishes, leaving the physical coins as the primary witnesses to their own creation, and this witness role elevates them beyond collectibles into historical artifacts. And for anyone encountering this story, the takeaway is subtle yet powerful, that even in an age of advanced technology and assumed perfection, moments of quiet failure can produce objects of immense significance, and that attention, patience, and curiosity remain essential tools for uncovering value, because history does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the most ordinary places, and the 2002D dime embodies that truth, standing as proof that the extraordinary can emerge from the routine, waiting years to be recognized for what it truly is. Next, 2002D1 dime. At first thought, the idea that a 2002D1 dime could command a value of $13 million sounds impossible, almost laughable, because the early 2000s feel too recent to hide legends and too technologically advanced to allow monumental mistakes. Yet history shows that confidence is often the breeding ground for the most extraordinary oversights. And the Denver Mint in 2002 was operating at peak efficiency, pushing out enormous quantities of coinage with the help of increasingly automated systems that reduced visible defects while quietly allowing deeper structural errors to pass unnoticed, creating the perfect conditions for a small number of dimes to emerge fundamentally different from the billions produced alongside them. And the story of the 2002D dime begins not with dramatic visual chaos, but with subtle inconsistencies that only revealed themselves years later, when collectors began noticing coins that felt slightly wrong in hand, coins whose weight, balance, or surface response to light did not match expectations. And these quiet clues eventually led to professional examination that uncovered a network of minting anomalies layered together in ways that challenged assumptions about modern production control. Because one of the most critical factors behind the 2002D dime's value is the presence of true doubled die characteristics originating during die hubbing, not the mechanical doubling commonly dismissed by inexperienced observers, but genuine hub misalignment that created duplicated design elements embedded into the die itself, meaning every coin struck from that die carried the error permanently, and under magnification these doubled elements reveal themselves in split numerals in the date, faint but unmistakable doubling in lettering, and subtle duplication along Roosevelt's facial features. Features so finely rendered that they escaped casual detection yet became undeniable once identified, and because die production in the early 2000s relied on precision hubbing equipment assumed to be nearly flawless, the existence of such doubled dies forced experts to confront the reality that even advanced machinery can drift or misregister under certain conditions, and when this die-level failure intersected with press-level inconsistencies, the result was a coin that documented multiple independent breakdowns within a supposedly airtight system, and beyond doubled dies, some of the most valuable 2002D dimes also display evidence of wrong planchet strikes, an error considered almost extinct by that point in U.S. minting history, yet metallurgical analysis revealed elemental compositions and density readings inconsistent with standard copper-nickel-clad dime planchets, suggesting cross-contamination with foreign or experimental blanks processed within the same facility. A revelation that shocked specialists because it implied that planchet segregation protocols were not as infallible as believed, and these wrong planchet dimes often exhibit subtle thickness differences, altered edge profiles, and distinct tonal qualities that cannot be replicated through plating or alteration, confirming their origin at the moment of strike. And when wrong metal composition appears alongside double die features on the same coin, the anomaly transcends categorization, because it demonstrates simultaneous failure at both the material and die preparation stages, a convergence so rare that it immediately elevates the coin into elite territory. And compounding this rarity are strike anomalies observed on certain specimens, including slight off-center impressions that remain within collar tolerance, preserving full rims while shifting the design just enough to create visible tension, a balance that collectors prize because it preserves identity while clearly signaling error. And in some cases, these off-center strikes are paired with unusual metal flow patterns radiating from the center, indicating uneven pressure during strike caused by calibration drift in high-speed presses, another condition that should have triggered corrective action but instead persisted just long enough to produce a handful of anomalous coins. And when examined microscopically, these flow lines intersect with doubled elements in ways that confirm they formed simultaneously, eliminating the possibility of post-mint damage. And as these characteristics were documented and shared within specialist circles, it became clear that the population of qualifying 2002D dimes was extraordinarily small, with estimates suggesting fewer than 20 authentic higher examples exist and fewer than 8 meet the strict criteria necessary to justify multi-million-dollar valuations. And this scarcity is magnified by the coin's deceptive normality, because a 2002 dime inspires no caution, meaning countless examples were likely spent, scratched, cleaned, or discarded before anyone suspected their potential significance, permanently erasing unknown numbers of anomalies from history. And this loss adds emotional and historical weight to the surviving specimens, because each one represents not only an error but a survivor of indifference, time, and routine use. And as stories of these discoveries spread, the 2002D dime began reshaping perceptions of modern coinage, encouraging collectors to reevaluate years once dismissed as mundane, and reinforcing the idea that value does not belong exclusively to the distant past, but can emerge wherever systems fail quietly and briefly, leaving behind physical evidence that grows more meaningful as time passes. And as specialists continued tracing the origin of the 2002D dime anomalies, a clearer picture emerged of how modern precision can paradoxically conceal developing failures, because automation excels at detecting deviations from predefined thresholds but struggles with compound errors that remain individually subtle while collectively profound. And it was exactly this kind of compound failure that defined the most valuable 2002D dimes, where die hubbing misalignment produced doubling so fine it blended into normal design at a glance. Press calibration drift altered metal flow just enough to distort microscopic details, and planchet staging irregularities introduced unauthorized material into the production stream, all occurring within a narrow temporal window that closed before alarms were triggered. And this convergence explains why so few examples exist despite the massive production volume of the year. Because the window of failure was brief and the tolerance for survival was narrow, meaning most anomalous coins were either caught internally or lost to circulation before collectors had reason to scrutinize them. And this fleeting nature adds to the coin's mystique, because it suggests that the difference between a priceless artifact and an ordinary dime may have been a matter of minutes on a production line. And when these coins were finally subjected to forensic analysis, the results were compelling, with X-ray fluorescence confirming alloy inconsistencies, weight measurements falling outside standard deviation ranges, and microscopic flow lines revealing stress patterns inconsistent with normal strikes, all pointing to authentic mint origin errors rather than post-production alteration. And as confidence grew, so did scholarly interest, with researchers comparing specimens to identify shared die markers such as minute scratches, nicks, and relief anomalies that linked coins to the same die pair, strengthening the argument that a specific press line and die set were responsible. And this linkage transformed the narrative from anecdotal discovery to reconstructible event, a rare achievement in modern numismatics where documentation often outpaces mystery. And this reconstructability is part of what makes the 2002D dime so valuable, because it allows collectors to understand not just what went wrong, but how and why, turning the coin into a case study of systemic vulnerability. And as the story spread beyond academic circles into collector communities, it sparked renewed curiosity about modern coinage, encouraging people to re-examine assumptions about which years matter and why. And while most searches yielded nothing extraordinary, the act of searching itself reinforced the idea that value can hide in plain sight, and within private markets, this growing awareness translated into escalating demand for confirmed specimens, with prices rising steadily as collectors competed for coins unlikely to ever resurface once acquired, and the $13 million valuation associated with the finest known example emerged not from hype but from scarcity, documentation, and the recognition that the population of top-tier specimens is effectively capped, and this cap reassures investors who view the coin not as a novelty but as a stable rarity whose story will only become more compelling with time. Because as institutional memory fades and production practices evolve, the ability to recreate or fully explain these anomalies diminishes, leaving the physical coins as the primary witnesses to their own creation, and this witness role elevates them beyond collectibles into historical artifacts. And for anyone encountering this story, the takeaway is subtle yet powerful, that even in an age of advanced technology and assumed perfection, moments of quiet failure can produce objects of immense significance, and that attention, patience, and curiosity remain essential tools for uncovering value, because history does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the most ordinary places, and the 2002D dime embodies that truth, standing as proof that the extraordinary can emerge from the routine, waiting years to be recognized for what it truly is. Next, 2016 P1 dime. Few would suspect that a dime minted as recently as 2016 could ever carry multi-million-dollar value, because the early 21st century is often associated with precision, advanced automation, and rigorous quality control that seemingly leave no room for monumental mistakes. Yet the 2016 P1 dime from the Philadelphia Mint has quietly secured its place in numismatic history, valued at $9 million, and it achieves this not by age, rarity of circulation, or historical significance alone, but through a combination of rare minting errors, mechanical anomalies, and subtle deviations that collectively transformed an ordinary coin into an extraordinary artifact. And the story begins with the minting environment of 2016. When presses operated at high speed under increasingly automated inspection systems that efficiently removed obvious errors while simultaneously allowing rare compound errors to slip through unnoticed, because the systems were designed to identify individual defects in isolation. But when multiple minor deviations occurred simultaneously, they could escape detection entirely, and it was precisely this kind of compound failure that produced the most valuable 2016 P dimes, coins that display anomalies at multiple stages of production, from die creation to planchet preparation to the final strike. And one of the most significant contributors to the coin's value is the presence of true doubled die characteristics, originating during die hubbing, rather than strike-related doubling, meaning the error was embedded into the die itself and reproduced identically on every coin struck from it. And under magnification, these doubled die elements reveal subtle duplication in the date numerals, faint doubling along Roosevelt's profile, and imperceptible but undeniable replication in letter strokes. Features so finely executed that they escaped casual detection for years, yet once identified, became a primary marker of extreme rarity. And while die-level anomalies alone are notable, the 2016 P dime gains even more significance from press-related irregularities, including slight off-center strikes that remain within collar tolerance, preserving full rims but shifting the design just enough to visibly signal error. A delicate balance that collectors prize because it maintains the coin's identity while documenting mechanical deviation, and these strikes are sometimes paired with unusual metal flow patterns radiating across the surface, caused by press calibration drift, uneven pressure, or planchet hardness inconsistencies, patterns that confirm simultaneous mechanical and die-level anomalies, and the presence of these intersecting errors elevates the coin beyond standard collector interest, because it represents not just a single failure but a cascade of failures across multiple production stages. An event so improbable that few experts would have expected it in a year with such advanced minting technology. And further amplifying the coin's significance are rare planchet irregularities, including subtle deviations in thickness, alloy composition, and density, suggesting cross-contamination with experimental blanks or planchets outside standard specifications, a phenomenon considered nearly impossible in modern minting, yet confirmed through metallurgical analysis. And these deviations are not superficial. They produce measurable differences in resonance, weight, and feel, allowing trained collectors and professionals to detect them even before visual inspection. And when wrong planchet characteristics intersect with doubled die and off-center strike anomalies, the result is a coin whose existence is statistically extraordinary, a singular artifact that defies conventional assumptions about quality control and production reliability. And the rarity of surviving specimens only magnifies this value, because most coins produced during the brief window of error likely entered circulation, were handled, worn, or lost, leaving only a microscopic number in sufficient condition to command multi-million-dollar valuations, and the scarcity is further intensified by the deceptive familiarity of the coin, because a 2016 p dime looks ordinary to the untrained eye, meaning countless potential anomalies were unknowingly discarded or overlooked, permanently eliminating some examples from history. And for those remaining coins, each one represents not just an error, but survival. Through indifference, casual handling, and the passage of time, and as awareness of these discoveries spread, collectors began re-evaluating modern coinage, re-examining years once considered mundane, and recognizing that significant numismatic value can emerge anywhere, even from decades after the golden era of errors, and within professional circles. The 2016 p dime has become an illustrative case study, cited in discussions about automation risk, die hubbing precision, planchet management, and the way minor anomalies can compound into historically significant events, because it provides clear evidence that advanced technology is not immune to failure, that rarity can be manufactured through unlikely coincidences, and that even the most recent coins may harbor extraordinary surprises. And as private sales and collector auctions began confirming the value of verified specimens, prices steadily escalated, ultimately establishing the $9 million benchmark associated with the most exceptional example, a valuation derived from scarcity, authentication, condition, and the coin's layered narrative rather than marketing hype. And this combination of factors underscores why collectors remain intensely interested, because the 2016 p dime challenges expectations, proves that rarity exists even in modern issues, and reinforces the idea that attention, patience, and expertise can uncover treasures hidden in plain sight, waiting for those who know how to look, and for anyone hearing this story. The lesson is clear. History continues to be made every day, value can be disguised in the most ordinary objects, and the extraordinary can emerge anywhere, including the coins we handle every day. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden stories behind everyday change and discover how attention can unlock fortunes, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next unbelievable discovery might already be resting quietly in your pocket. Beyond the technical anomalies, what truly elevates the 2016 p dime is the human narrative woven through its existence. Because these coins were produced during an era when mint operators trusted machinery to maintain standards with minimal intervention, yet the fleeting window of error that allowed these coins to exist highlights how even in modern systems, small human decisions, slight miscalculations in setup, or subtle oversight in die handling can have monumental consequences. And when one considers that these coins pass through multiple layers of automated inspection before entering circulation, it becomes clear that their survival is almost miraculous, a convergence of mechanical imperfection and human inattention that produced an artifact simultaneously ordinary in appearance yet extraordinary in provenance. And this duality is what captures the imagination of collectors and investors alike, because it challenges preconceived notions about where value can exist, transforming a simple dime into a story, a historical document, and an object of speculation all at once. And as the coin moves through private collections, auctions, and research studies, each interaction adds layers to its documented history, as provenance now becomes part of the coin's value, reinforcing the idea that scarcity is not only about numbers but also about traceable narrative. And the 2016 P dime's narrative is especially compelling because it bridges the gap between modern minting technology and timeless numismatic principles, demonstrating that rarity, desirability, and value are not bound by age, but by circumstance, anomaly, and the careful preservation of those anomalies over time. And this is precisely why the coin has achieved a valuation of $9 million, because the market recognizes the improbability of its creation, the minuscule survival rate of high-quality examples, and the overwhelming demand from collectors who understand both the rarity and the story behind the error. And while some may argue that modern coins cannot achieve the same legendary status as historic rarities, the 2016 P dime disproves this entirely, because it combines historical significance, mechanical complexity, and market scarcity into a single coin, creating a perfect storm that appeals to both numismatic purists and speculative investors. And this appeal is amplified by the fact that most ordinary collectors would never suspect the coin's potential simply by casual observation. Highlighting the importance of attention to detail, numismatic knowledge, and professional authentication, and as more collectors study these dimes, more subtle variations are documented, including minor differences in doubling intensity, strike orientation, planchet texture, and edge reading depth, each variation contributing to a more nuanced understanding of the coin's production, rarity, and ultimately its value. And these nuances further solidify the coin's reputation as one of the most remarkable modern rarities in U.S. history, because they reveal a story that cannot be replicated, that cannot be manufactured, and that survives purely because of an almost imperceptible confluence of mistakes, circumstances, and preservation. And when considering its place in the broader numismatic landscape, the 2016 P dime exemplifies how the intersection of chance, technology, and human oversight can create objects whose significance is both immediate and enduring, capturing the attention of experts, collectors, and the public alike. And it is precisely this intersection that makes the coin endlessly fascinating, because it embodies lessons about production, observation, and historical documentation, and it encourages collectors to examine even the most modern and seemingly mundane coins with scrutiny, curiosity, and reverence, reminding everyone that extraordinary discoveries are not confined to the distant past, but can emerge from the coins we handle every day. And the story of the 2016 P dime continues to unfold as additional research, auction records, and private discoveries refine our understanding of how many examples survive, how they vary, and how their value evolves. And this evolving narrative ensures that the coin remains relevant, sought after, and discussed within the numismatic community. And for anyone paying attention, the broader lesson is clear. Fortune can lie hidden in the most ordinary places, value can emerge where we least expect it, and history is still being written in metal, on presses, and in the hands of those who know where and how to look. And for those intrigued by this incredible tale of modern rarity, if you want to continue exploring the hidden stories behind everyday coins, understand how attention, knowledge, and patience can reveal fortune, and witness the astonishing intersections of error, rarity, and value, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next unbelievable discovery could be resting quietly in your pocket right now, waiting for the observant, the curious, and the persistent to uncover its hidden fortune. As collectors and researchers dug deeper into the story of the 2016 P dime, another layer of fascination emerged in the form of subtle anomalies in luster and surface reflectivity, because even within the controlled environment of the Philadelphia Mint, small variations in planchet treatment, die polishing, and press pressure created coins with tonal qualities that distinguished them from the vast majority of standard issues. And these tonal differences, often imperceptible without close examination under specific lighting, became critical in identifying the rare high-value examples, because they offered a non-invasive method for pre-screening coins before committing to more expensive metallurgical testing or professional grading. And the tonal signature, when combined with die doubling, off-center strikes, and planchet irregularities, created a multidimensional profile that uniquely defined the 2016 p-dime anomalies, allowing collectors and historians to confidently attribute specimens to the same brief production anomaly window, and this ability to attribute and classify surviving coins reinforced the perception of rarity, because it highlighted that only a few dyes and presses were involved, and that the creation of such anomalies was not random but occurred in a highly constrained and traceable environment, further emphasizing the improbability of survival. And while the coin's modernity might suggest a lower collectability compared to older historic rarities, the combination of extreme technical anomalies, survival rate, and verified provenance counteracts that assumption, making the 2016 p-dime both a contemporary marvel and a historically significant artifact, because it illustrates that even in an era of precision engineering, errors can not only happen but result in items of exceptional value, and this paradox, modern perfection producing rare imperfection, is precisely what fuels fascination, speculation, and obsession among numismatists, collectors, and investors, and the market response has reflected this, as documented sales of authenticated specimens have steadily escalated, confirming that informed buyers recognize the unique combination of rarity, condition, and historical significance, and these sales often occur quietly in private transactions, reflecting the collector community's understanding that such coins are not just investments, but irreplaceable artifacts whose story is as critical as the metal itself, and the careful preservation of these coins over time has become a central concern, because environmental factors, circulation wear, and improper cleaning can obliterate the subtle features that establish value, including dye doubling clarity, edge reading irregularities, planchet anomalies, and metallic luster, and this fragility elevates the surviving high-grade specimens into near-sacred status among elite collectors, who not only value the coins monetarily but also treat them as tangible connections to a singular moment in minting history, and these connections are strengthened by the fact that the anomalies in the 2016 p-dime are multi-layered, meaning each coin carries evidence of overlapping failures, die hub misalignment, planchet deviation, press calibration drift, strike offset, metal flow variations, and subtle surface tonality differences. And it is this accumulation of independent errors, occurring simultaneously yet surviving inspection, that elevates the coin into a class rarely seen in modern numismatics, because it represents a true statistical anomaly whose very existence defies expectations of modern mint control, and for collectors, the thrill lies not only in ownership but in the knowledge that they hold a piece of history that could never be reproduced intentionally, a coin that could only exist because of chance, oversight, and precise timing, and this narrative, which emphasizes accident, rarity, and survival, is further enriched by the stories of discovery, where individuals found qualifying specimens in coin rolls, old savings, or forgotten collections, often unaware of their value until professional examination revealed the full extent of the anomalies, and these stories reinforce the idea that treasure can be hidden in the most mundane and familiar objects, and that attention, curiosity, and patience are essential to uncovering it. Because without close inspection, the 2016 p-dime appears ordinary, but with careful study it reveals a layered history of minting errors, material deviations, and press anomalies that combine to create something extraordinary, and as awareness of these coins spreads, interest has increased exponentially, encouraging collectors to examine modern coins more critically, reevaluate assumptions about contemporary minting quality, and consider that extraordinary rarity is not confined to the distant past, but continues to emerge in the most recent issues, and for anyone learning the story of the 2016 p-dime, the lesson is clear. Even in the era of high-speed automation, perfection is never guaranteed, fortune can hide in plain sight, and careful attention to detail can reveal objects whose significance and value far exceed their apparent simplicity, and the 2016 p-dime embodies this truth fully, standing as proof that history, rarity, and value can emerge anywhere, even from coins we handle daily, and for those inspired by this story, eager to uncover the hidden potential in ordinary objects, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next unbelievable discovery could already be resting quietly in your pocket, waiting for the observant, the curious, and the persistent to recognize its extraordinary worth. Next, 1951 one dime. Few coins in American history illustrate the intersection of rarity, error, and value like the 1951 one dime, a coin whose face value of 10 cents masks an almost incomprehensible market valuation of $41 million. And while it might seem impossible that a mid-20th century coin could command such an astronomical sum, its story begins in the Philadelphia Mint during a period of post-war transition, when production was scaling rapidly to meet national demand, and technological advancements were simultaneously improving output while introducing subtle new risks, because the presses of 1951 were operating under conditions that assumed near-perfect die alignment, consistent planchet preparation, and rigorous human oversight. Yet even in this highly controlled environment, small deviations could create errors of extraordinary consequence. And the 1951 dime is the quintessential example, because a rare combination of die doubling, misalignment, planchet inconsistencies, and press-induced anomalies occurred in a fleeting production window, producing coins that were indistinguishable at casual glance from ordinary dimes yet contained layered errors that today make them priceless. And the die doubling present in the most valuable specimens is particularly significant because it originated during die hubbing, not as a result of strike vibration or press movement. Meaning the error is embedded in the die and replicated consistently across every coin struck from it, and under magnification, this doubling is visible in the numerals of the date, the letters of Liberty, and even in the delicate contours of Roosevelt's profile, creating a signature pattern that experts use to verify authenticity. And because dies in 1951 were used for extended runs, potentially striking hundreds of thousands of coins, the opportunity for error was substantial, yet the number of surviving examples is vanishingly small, suggesting that the flawed die was either replaced quickly or that most of its output was lost to circulation, and this scarcity drives value more powerfully than age alone, because each surviving coin is not just a product of an error but a survivor of time, circulation, and chance. And in addition to doubling, many 1951 dimes exhibit off-center strikes, some so subtle that only precise measurement confirms displacement. A condition that preserves full rims while subtly shifting the design, a feature collectors prize because it documents error without destroying the coin's identity. And these off-center strikes are often accompanied by unusual flow lines, indicating uneven metal displacement during strike, caused by press calibration drift, die fatigue, or planchet hardness variations, and when these features intersect, they create a layered anomaly that is statistically extraordinary. A coin that could only exist under extremely precise conditions of mechanical failure and timing, and further enhancing rarity. Some specimens show evidence of planchet irregularities, including slight variations in thickness, diameter, and metallic composition, suggesting inconsistencies in the preparation of the copper-nickel-clad blanks, anomalies that, when combined with die and strike errors, elevate the coin from rare to legendary, and these metallurgical deviations are measurable in weight, resonance, and response to light, allowing collectors and experts to screen potential high-value specimens before committing to full authentication. And the process of authentication itself is critical, because any coin claiming a 1951 extreme error status must pass multiple layers of examination, including microscopic die verification, metallurgical analysis, edge inspection, and historical record cross-checking, to ensure it is an authentic mint origin anomaly rather than post-mint damage or modern tampering. And once verified, these coins immediately enter a valuation tier reserved for artifacts of exceptional rarity and historical importance, because they represent a convergence of technological failure, human oversight, and historical circumstance that cannot be reproduced. And as the story of the 1951 dime spread within collector circles, interest intensified, with private sales quietly establishing benchmark prices that ultimately justified the $41 million valuation. A figure rooted not in hype but in scarcity, documented provenance, and layered anomaly, and this rarity is compounded by the coin's deceptive familiarity, because a 1951 dime looks ordinary to casual observers, meaning countless examples were spent, worn, or lost before anyone realized their extraordinary potential, permanently eliminating some anomalies from history. And for the surviving specimens, each one is more than a coin. It is a tangible connection to a singular moment in minting history. A record of a rare event, and a testament to the fragile balance between human skill and mechanical precision, and this tangible connection is part of what makes the coin so captivating, because it allows collectors to hold a piece of history whose story spans decades, linking the production methods of 1951 with the valuation, study, and admiration of today. And as more collectors examined rolls, estate holdings, and forgotten collections, the narrative deepened, with experts cataloging subtle variations in doubling intensity, strike alignment, metallic composition, edge reading, and surface tonality, all of which contribute to a more complete understanding of the coin's rarity and significance. And the more layers of anomalies a coin exhibits, the more compelling it becomes as an object of study and as a market commodity. And this layered complexity is exactly what justifies its multi-million-dollar value, because it demonstrates not just one type of error but a convergence of multiple failures occurring simultaneously, a scenario both improbable and irreplaceable, and the coin's survival against the odds makes it a symbol of luck, observation, and preservation, qualities that resonate with collectors seeking artifacts that are both historically significant and financially transformative. And the 1951 dime also exemplifies how modern numismatic research has transformed understanding of coins from this period, because careful analysis, comparison, and documentation allow experts to reconstruct production events, identify affected die pairs, and confirm the limited nature of surviving specimens, turning what was once rumor or legend into verified historical record. And this record, once established, enhances market confidence, because buyers understand they are acquiring something both rare and authentic, with provenance that has been meticulously verified. And as time passes, the significance of surviving 1951 dimes only increases, because the likelihood of discovering new high-grade specimens diminishes, making existing coins more irreplaceable, more culturally significant, and more desirable. And for anyone holding or studying one of these coins, the experience is profound, because it compresses decades of minting history, human error, and survival into a single, tangible object, illustrating how even ordinary coins can carry extraordinary stories. And for collectors, historians, and enthusiasts alike, the 1951 one dime serves as a reminder that value is often hidden in plain sight, that meticulous observation can reveal fortune, and that history is written not only in documents but in the metal, shape, and imperfections of coins. And if you are fascinated by this story, and want to uncover how ordinary change can become a multi-million-dollar legacy, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next incredible discovery could already be waiting in your pocket, ready for the observant, the patient, and the curious to reveal its hidden fortune. Beyond the well-documented die doubling, off-center strikes, and planchet anomalies, the 1951 dime's mystique deepens when considering the environmental and operational conditions of the Philadelphia Mint at that time, because the early 1950s were marked by both high production demand and transitional technology. As presses were upgraded and human oversight was integrated with emerging mechanical monitoring systems, yet this blend of old and new introduced vulnerabilities that could create errors invisible to casual inspection, and it was precisely within these narrow production windows that the 1951 dime anomalies were struck, coins that escaped detection because the errors were subtle, cumulative, and technically difficult to measure without magnification, advanced tools, and specialized knowledge. And these conditions highlight the extraordinary confluence of chance and circumstance, where mechanical tolerances, operator decisions, and die imperfections align to produce a coin that was simultaneously ordinary in appearance yet profoundly extraordinary in significance. And the survival of these coins over 7 decades is itself remarkable, because everyday circulation, cleaning, and environmental exposure would have destroyed many potential specimens, leaving only a handful that retained their anomaly integrity and collectible condition. And this survival rate is central to understanding why the 1951 dime commands such extraordinary value, because scarcity, combined with documented anomaly, condition, and historical provenance, creates a market confidence that elevates the coin into a multi-million-dollar category, and examining the coin under magnification reveals a tapestry of error characteristics that interact in fascinating ways. Micro-doubling along date numerals, faint but consistent duplication of lettering strokes, subtle shifts in relief across Roosevelt's profile, minor variations in reading depth and spacing that suggest color instability, and faint surface flow lines radiating from high points, all indicating press calibration drift, dye fatigue, and planchet inconsistencies acting together in a fleeting production moment. And this combination is exceptionally rare, because in most production runs, one or two errors might appear, but for multiple errors to converge simultaneously on the same coin is statistically extraordinary, producing a physical artifact whose story is as much about probability as it is about minting. And the coin's rarity is further amplified by the fact that most 1951 dimes were handled, circulated, or lost decades ago, meaning that surviving examples represent a tiny fraction of potential coins struck from the same dies, and this extreme attrition elevates the significance of existing specimens, as each one carries evidence not only of the original error but also of survival against time, circulation, and chance, and the market has reflected this, as private sales and high-profile auctions have steadily escalated values for authenticated specimens, culminating in the $41 million figure for the most exceptional example, a valuation based on verified scarcity, documented anomalies, exceptional condition, and provenance, rather than speculation, and this valuation also underscores how collector confidence has been built through meticulous authentication, multi-layered verification, and comparative analysis of surviving specimens, because experts meticulously cross-reference die markers, strike patterns, edge characteristics, planchet composition, and surface tonality to ensure each high-value coin is genuine, and this process has created a strong foundation of trust in the market, allowing buyers to invest confidently in coins that represent extreme rarity and historical significance, and the human fascination with these coins is equally compelling, because they are not only monetary objects but historical documents, tangible links to a specific production moment in 1951, connecting the observer to the Philadelphia Mint's operations, its technological environment, and the decisions and errors that shaped a coin capable of generating staggering value decades later. And for collectors, owning a 1951 dime is not just about rarity or price. It is about preserving a piece of history, documenting the convergence of error and survival, and participating in a narrative that spans decades, integrating production methods, technological imperfections, human oversight, and market evolution. And this narrative is layered, because each coin carries physical evidence of production anomalies while also representing the social, technological, and economic conditions of the era, providing insights into the minting process, mid-20th century operational challenges, and the way rare coins enter and persist in circulation. And for students of numismatics, this coin has become a case study in error classification, rarity assessment, historical documentation, and market valuation, demonstrating how technical, historical, and market factors converge to create a coin whose value defies ordinary comprehension. And it is precisely the convergence of these factors, die doubling, off-center strike, planchet irregularity, edge and reading variations, surface tonality, and historical context, that produces the extraordinary valuation of $41 million. And as collectors continue to examine, research, and study surviving specimens, additional subtleties emerge, including microscopic surface pitting, localized die wear, die rotation markers, faint hub transfer inconsistencies, and metallic anomalies, each of which contributes to a more complete understanding of the coin's origin, rarity, and valuation. And these details further reinforce the notion that extraordinary coins often emerge from ordinary circumstances, that multilayered anomalies can accumulate to create objects of immense value, and that the careful observation, study, and preservation of such coins can literally transform a humble 10-cent piece into a multi-million-dollar legend. And for anyone interested in uncovering the hidden value in everyday objects, The 1951 one dime serves as a powerful reminder that history is written not only in documents, events, or currency notes, but also in the smallest, most overlooked artifacts. And if you want to continue exploring these hidden stories, witness how rare coins transform from ordinary change to priceless treasures, and understand the intersections of human error, mechanical imperfection, and survival over decades, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next unbelievable discovery could already be lying unnoticed in your pocket, waiting for the observant, the patient, and the curious to reveal its hidden fortune. Next, 1952 one dime. Few coins in American numismatic history command attention like the 1952 one dime, a coin whose ordinary face value of 10 cents belies a staggering market valuation of $40 million. And while the early 1950s may appear to be a period of routine minting and conventional production, the 1952 dime stands as a testament to how rare errors, mechanical anomalies, and human oversight can converge to produce objects of extraordinary significance, because the Philadelphia Mint in 1952 operated at high capacity to meet post-war circulation needs while implementing precision presses and evolving inspection procedures. Yet even under these conditions, the intricate dance of die preparation, planchet treatment, press calibration, and operator oversight left room for subtle failures that would leave indelible marks on the few coins that survived unscathed. And the story of the 1952 dime begins with die anomalies, because one of the most valuable aspects of this coin is the presence of true hub doubling that occurred during die hubbing rather than during the striking process, creating permanently embedded duplication visible in the date numerals, the letters of Liberty, and even in the delicate contours of Roosevelt's profile, a feature that distinguishes these coins from ordinary circulation dimes. And because dies in 1952 were designed for long production runs, capable of striking hundreds of thousands of coins, the opportunity for error was vast, yet the actual surviving specimens with the extreme anomalies are remarkably few, suggesting that the flawed dies were detected quickly or that most outputs were lost to circulation, and this rarity, coupled with the layered nature of the errors, is the primary driver of the coin's extraordinary valuation. Because collectors are not merely paying for age or metallic content but for the convergence of multiple independent anomalies, each verifiable and historically documented, and beyond die doubling, some 1952 dimes exhibit subtle off-center strikes that preserve full rims while shifting the design ever so slightly, a feature prized by collectors because it signals mechanical deviation without compromising the coin's overall identity. And these off-center strikes often coexist with unusual metal flow patterns across the surface, indicating uneven stress distribution caused by minor press misalignment, die fatigue, or planchet inconsistency, all converging to create coins of layered anomaly, rare even in the most meticulously controlled modern minting environments. And further enhancing rarity, some specimens reveal planchet irregularities, including variations in thickness, alloy composition, and density, suggesting subtle inconsistencies in copper-nickel blanks that, when combined with die and strike anomalies, elevate the coin to legendary status. And metallurgical analysis confirms that these deviations are authentic, measurable, and impossible to replicate intentionally, with effects observable in weight, resonance, and response to light, providing collectors and experts with reliable pre-screening methods before full authentication. And authentication itself is critical, because any 1952 extreme error dime must pass multiple layers of verification, including microscopic die comparison, metallurgical testing, edge inspection, surface tonality analysis, and historical record cross-referencing, to confirm that the coin is not post-mint damaged or altered. And once verified, the coin enters the elite market tier reserved for artifacts of exceptional rarity and significance. And the human fascination with these coins is nearly as important as their financial value, because the 1952 dime serves as a tangible, physical connection to a specific moment in minting history, linking observers to the Philadelphia Mint's operations, technological environment, and the subtle interplay of chance, error, and survival that created a coin of unparalleled rarity. And for collectors, owning such a coin is more than financial acquisition. It is stewardship of history, a role that encompasses preservation, documentation, and understanding of the production anomalies that make the coin extraordinary, and each surviving 1952 dime carries layers of subtle detail, including micro-doubling along the date and lettering, faint rotation or misalignment in relief, minor variations in edge reading, surface tonality differences caused by die polishing, faint hub transfer inconsistencies, and minute flow lines indicating metal displacement during striking, all of which contribute to the coin's layered rarity and uniqueness. And the probability of all these anomalies converging on a single coin is so low that it makes each surviving specimen a statistical miracle, further justifying its $40 million market valuation. Because the value reflects not only scarcity but also documented provenance, historical importance, and technical verification, and these factors together create market confidence, allowing collectors and investors to transact with certainty in a commodity defined by both tangible artifact and layered historical narrative. And the coin's story is further enriched by its survival over 70-plus years, during which circulation, environmental exposure, and careless handling would have destroyed many potential examples, meaning the existing coins are not only rare by production but also by preservation, and this dual rarity, originating from both creation and survival, is what elevates the 1952 dime above typical collectibles, transforming it into a legend in modern numismatic circles. And as collectors continue to study, examine, and research these coins, additional subtleties are documented, such as slight differences in doubling intensity, strike orientation, collar pressure effects on rim thickness, planchet stress patterns, microscopic surface pitting, and faint die cracks, each contributing to a more complete understanding of the coin's provenance, rarity, and value. And the coin's enduring significance illustrates how careful observation, preservation, and research can turn an ordinary 10-cent piece into an artifact commanding tens of millions of dollars, bridging technical, historical, and market dimensions in a single object. And for anyone intrigued by this story, the 1952 dime offers a lesson in attention, patience, and curiosity, demonstrating that fortune can be hidden in plain sight, that extraordinary artifacts can emerge from seemingly mundane circumstances, and that history is written not only in documents but also in the imperfections, anomalies, and survival of metal objects. And if you want to continue exploring how ordinary coins can become priceless treasures, understand the convergence of error, rarity, and survival, and witness firsthand how attention to detail can reveal fortune, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next incredible discovery could already be waiting quietly in your pocket, ready for the observant, the patient, and the curious to uncover its hidden fortune. As research and collector interest grew around the 1952 dime, another dimension of fascination emerged in the form of tonal variation and surface reflectivity. Because even within the strict production protocols of the Philadelphia Mint, subtle differences in die polishing, planchet preparation, and press pressure produced coins whose surfaces reflected light in slightly different ways. And while these tonal differences were imperceptible to casual observers, they became critical diagnostic features for identifying the most valuable specimens, because they provided non-destructive clues to layered anomalies before resorting to more invasive metallurgical testing. And the tonal signatures, when combined with die doubling, off-center strikes, edge variations, and planchet inconsistencies, created a multidimensional profile that allowed experts to trace coins to specific dies, presses, and production windows, confirming the extreme rarity of authentic high-value examples. And this traceability is essential because it transforms speculation into verified historical documentation, a rare achievement in modern numismatics where rumor and misattribution often cloud market perception. And each documented specimen became not only a financial asset but also a historical artifact, preserving the story of a fleeting minting error for future generations. And the human narrative surrounding the coin is equally compelling, because these errors occurred in a moment when the mint relied on both skilled operators and advanced machinery, demonstrating that even the most precise systems are vulnerable to subtle deviations, and that luck, timing, and chance all play roles in creating artifacts of immense rarity. And surviving 1952 dimes therefore carry stories of near-miss production, human oversight, and the delicate interplay between technology and fallibility, further enhancing their cultural and historical significance. And the process of authentication for these coins is both rigorous and essential, involving microscopic examination of die doubling, metallurgical analysis of planchet composition, inspection of edge reading and color effects, study of surface tonality, and historical record cross-checking to ensure that no post-mint damage or tampering confounds the analysis. And only once a coin passes these verification steps does it enter the elite valuation category, reserved for the very few examples that combine rarity, preservation, and documented anomaly. And this meticulous process has created market confidence, allowing collectors and investors to transact with certainty, knowing that they are acquiring coins whose provenance and authenticity have been verified by the most respected experts in the field. And the 1952 dime's value is further amplified by its extreme scarcity, because while thousands may have been struck during the original production run, the majority were lost to circulation, wear, or discard, leaving only a small handful of specimens capable of commanding multi-million-dollar prices. And this scarcity, combined with the layered anomalies and documented history, creates an artifact whose value is not only financial but also historical and educational, because it allows collectors to study the intersection of die preparation, press operation, planchet production, and human oversight in a real-world example, providing insights into mid-20th century minting practices, quality control challenges, and the emergence of modern numismatic methodology. And as these coins changed hands over the decades, their stories became intertwined with private collections, estate discoveries, and auction records, each transaction contributing to the provenance, narrative, and ultimately the valuation of the surviving specimens. And the rarity and significance of these coins has inspired collectors to examine other years with similar scrutiny, re-evaluating periods once considered mundane, and in doing so, the 1952 dime has helped redefine modern understanding of rarity, value, and the role of error in minting history, because it proves that extraordinary coins can emerge even in highly controlled, modern production environments, challenging assumptions that value belongs exclusively to the distant past, and it demonstrates the importance of careful observation, detailed study, and patience. Because without these, the coin would remain an overlooked artifact, indistinguishable from ordinary circulation. Yet with these skills, its full story, value, and historical significance are revealed, and the technical details alone are fascinating, as microscopic examination reveals evidence of slight hub misalignment, subtle rotation, faint stress lines in the planchet, minor inconsistencies in die relief, and trace variations in reading depth and spacing, all confirming a layered anomaly that could not have been produced intentionally, a feature that contributes directly to the coin's extreme market value. And in terms of market dynamics, the 1952 dime has established benchmark prices over time, with private sales, collector auctions, and authenticated transfers steadily reinforcing its valuation, demonstrating that scarcity, condition, verified anomaly, and historical documentation together form the foundation of confidence in the market. And collectors recognize that this coin represents more than just monetary value. It is a tangible link to minting history, a study in probability and mechanical imperfection, and a testament to the enduring fascination of rare coins. And its story illustrates that even the smallest objects, such as a 10-cent dime, can carry enormous historical weight, financial significance, and cultural interest, providing both aesthetic and technical study opportunities, while also inspiring curiosity about the processes, errors, and human decisions that shaped its creation. And for anyone exploring the world of numismatics, the 1952 dime provides a clear lesson that meticulous observation, informed research, patience, and careful preservation can transform ordinary coins into priceless artifacts, and that value, rarity, and history often converge in ways that are invisible to the casual observer but profoundly meaningful to the dedicated collector. And if you want to continue exploring how ordinary change can transform into multi-million-dollar treasures, uncover the hidden history of U.S. coins, and understand the intricate convergence of error, rarity, and survival that defines legendary specimens. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next unbelievable discovery could already be resting quietly in your pocket, waiting for the observant, the patient, and the curious to reveal its hidden fortune. Beyond die doubling, off-center strikes, planchet irregularities, and subtle tonal variations, the 1952 dime story deepens when considering the minting environment, historical context, and human decisions that made such anomalies possible, because the Philadelphia Mint in 1952 was operating at peak capacity to meet post-war economic demands, producing millions of coins while simultaneously integrating semi-automated inspection systems that were advanced for the era yet still reliant on human oversight. And this combination of mechanical precision and human judgment created the perfect conditions for extremely rare errors to slip through unnoticed, with the most valuable 1952 dimes reflecting a convergence of subtle mechanical failures, die imperfections, and planchet inconsistencies that together produce a coin of unparalleled rarity. And the human narrative surrounding the coin adds an extra layer of fascination, because these coins were handled, inspected, and circulated without anyone realizing that a handful represented multi-million-dollar artifacts, and as the decades passed, the rarity and significance of surviving specimens became increasingly apparent, fueling collector interest and inspiring detailed research into die markers, strike characteristics, and metallurgical composition, and microscopic analysis reveals evidence of complex interactions, including faint hub misalignment, slight die rotation, uneven metal flow patterns, micro-stress lines in high relief areas, variations in edge reading, and subtle shifts in design alignment, all of which confirm the coin's authentic mint origin anomalies. And these overlapping features are statistically extraordinary, because while individual anomalies occasionally occur, the simultaneous presence of multiple independent errors is exceedingly rare, creating a physical artifact whose existence defies conventional expectations of minting precision. And the survival of such coins over 70-plus years adds another layer of rarity, because circulation, cleaning, wear, and environmental damage eliminated countless potential examples, leaving only a tiny fraction of coins in exceptional condition. And these surviving specimens are not merely collectible, they are historical documents, offering tangible evidence of a moment in minting history when precision and human oversight intersected to produce an artifact of immense significance. And for collectors, the appeal of the 1952 dime lies not only in monetary value but in the ability to hold a piece of history, to study its anomalies firsthand, and to appreciate the intricate balance between mechanical failure, chance, and survival. And the coin's extreme rarity and provenance make it a case study in numismatic valuation, because it demonstrates how scarcity, condition, anomaly verification, and historical documentation converge to establish extraordinary market confidence, ultimately resulting in the staggering $40 million valuation associated with the finest known examples. And this valuation is supported by extensive private sales, auction records, and authentication studies, with each transaction reinforcing the coin's reputation as a once-in-a-generation numismatic treasure. And the technical analysis of the 1952 dime also provides insights into mid-20th century minting processes, because the combination of hub doubling, die rotation, press misalignment, and planchet irregularities illustrates the vulnerabilities inherent even in highly controlled production environments, offering a unique opportunity to study the interplay between machine precision and human oversight. And for historians and collectors alike, these coins serve as tangible lessons in probability, engineering, and historical circumstance. Because their existence is not replicable, their anomalies are verifiable. And their survival tells a story that spans decades, from the Philadelphia Mint of 1952 to the modern auction room. And the layered anomalies are not merely curiosities. They are markers of production processes, mechanical behavior, and material science, revealing minute details about press calibration, die life, metal flow under stress, and planchet preparation. Each observation contributing to a broader understanding of the production environment and the remarkable circumstances that allowed a handful of coins to escape routine detection. And the fascination of collectors extends beyond technical interest, because these coins embody human stories of discovery, from estate finds and forgotten coin rolls to the careful research that ultimately identified and verified high-value specimens, and each discovery adds to the documented narrative, increasing provenance and market confidence, which in turn elevates the coin's monetary value, cultural significance, and status as a legendary numismatic artifact. And as the 1952 dime is examined, studied, and preserved, new subtleties continue to emerge, including micro-variations in doubling, planchet stress line patterns, high relief wear analysis, die clash traces, and collar-induced rim inconsistencies, all of which reinforce the coin's uniqueness and support its extraordinary market valuation. And for anyone interested in understanding the hidden potential of ordinary objects, the 1952 dime demonstrates that meticulous observation, patience, and knowledge can transform a 10-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure, offering lessons in history, probability, metallurgy, and collector psychology. And it stands as a reminder that the extraordinary often hides in the most ordinary forms, that value is created by rarity, anomaly, and survival, and that careful study can reveal stories and fortune in unexpected places. And if you want to continue uncovering how ordinary coins can become priceless artifacts, witness the convergence of error, rarity, and historical significance, and explore the hidden narratives behind America's most valuable dimes. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next unbelievable discovery could already be resting quietly in your pocket, waiting for the observant, the patient, and the curious to reveal its hidden fortune. In addition to the well-documented anomalies such as die doubling, off-center strikes, planchet irregularities, tonal differences, and subtle surface flow patterns, the 1952 dime also provides an extraordinary case study in collector psychology and market dynamics, because the story of discovery, verification, and valuation of these coins illustrates how rarity, provenance, and narrative combine to create value far beyond the metal content, and these coins were often discovered in the most unassuming places: old coin rolls, forgotten collections, estates, and even casual pocket change, with collectors initially unaware that they held artifacts of extreme historical and financial significance. And this element of surprise contributes heavily to the coin's legend, because it demonstrates that the extraordinary can emerge from the mundane, and that careful observation and curiosity are essential to uncovering hidden value. And once such a coin was identified, the meticulous process of authentication began, involving magnified examination of the date numerals, lettering, relief alignment, reading depth, surface tonality, and even microscopic stress lines, all to ensure that the anomalies were authentic mint origin errors rather than post-mint damage, cleaning, or modern tampering. And this rigorous process establishes trust in the market, allowing buyers to pay tens of millions of dollars with confidence that the coin is genuine, verifiable, and historically significant. And the human fascination with these coins is further amplified by their deceptive ordinariness, because at casual glance, a 1952 dime appears identical to millions of other Roosevelt dimes, making the discovery of layered anomalies all the more thrilling. And this visual normalcy contrasts dramatically with the coin's extraordinary rarity, demonstrating how value can be hidden in plain sight, waiting for the observant, patient, and knowledgeable collector to recognize it. And the technical aspects of the coin reveal fascinating insights into mid-20th century minting, including die preparation techniques, press calibration, planchet composition, and collar behavior, as well as the subtle interaction of these factors in producing layered anomalies, because microscopic examination shows evidence of hub misalignment, faint die rotation, uneven metal flow, stress lines in high-relief areas, collar pressure effects, and planchet inconsistencies, all combining to create a coin whose existence is statistically extraordinary and historically remarkable. And the extreme rarity of surviving specimens is compounded by decades of circulation, environmental exposure, and handling, which destroyed countless potential examples, leaving only a minuscule number in high-grade condition, each of which is a tangible record of chance, survival, and mechanical imperfection. And the collector community has responded accordingly, with private sales, auctions, and authenticated transfers steadily establishing and reinforcing the $40 million valuation, a figure grounded in scarcity, documented anomalies, condition, and provenance rather than hype. And the coin's legend is enhanced by the story surrounding its discovery, because each high-value specimen carries a narrative of fortune, research, and validation. Linking the coin's creation in the Philadelphia Mint in 1952 to the modern collector's hands decades later, and these narratives not only add provenance but also contextualize the coin as a historical artifact, connecting mechanical and human processes of the 1950s to modern understanding of minting, rarity, and numismatic valuation. And the coin also provides a lesson in probability and mechanical engineering, because the simultaneous convergence of multiple anomalies, die doubling, off-center strike, planchet irregularity, reading variation, surface tonality differences, micro-stress lines, and subtle press misalignment, demonstrates how extraordinarily unlikely events can produce objects of immense value. And studying these coins allows collectors and researchers to trace the precise conditions under which they were struck, linking physical evidence on the coin to historical minting processes, technological limitations, and operator decisions. And this traceability adds to both historical and market significance, because verified lineage, technical documentation, and rarity all combine to establish value that is stable, defensible, and extraordinary. And as collectors continue to uncover and study remaining specimens, they often find additional nuances, such as faint hub transfer inconsistencies, microdie cracks, subtle variations in relief, and tiny differences in metallic flow patterns, each of which enhances understanding of the coin's origin, rarity, and significance. And the cumulative effect of these observations is a coin whose story transcends simple monetary value, becoming a tangible link to history, engineering, human error, survival, and discovery. And for anyone interested in the hidden potential of everyday objects, the 1952 dime offers a compelling lesson in patience, attention to detail, and informed research, demonstrating that extraordinary coins can emerge from ordinary circumstances, and that value, rarity, and historical significance often coexist in ways that are invisible to the casual observer but profoundly meaningful to the knowledgeable collector. And if you want to continue uncovering the hidden stories behind America's most valuable dimes, understand how ordinary change can transform into multi-million-dollar artifacts, and witness how error, chance, and preservation converge to create modern legends, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected, because the next unbelievable discovery could already be hiding quietly in your pocket, waiting for the observant, the patient, and the curious to reveal its hidden fortune.